Hi guys, since today is World Autism Day, I have got Gavin here, and the reason why I have Gavin is because he is still wearing blue. And none of my other babies have blue, and I honestly don't have a baby shirt for autism. I really need to look into like finding a shirt or onesie with puzzle pieces on it for autism. But anyways, I am going to follow along what I did last year, and I am going to read a book. I don't think I read this book last year. I think I read one of our other autism books, if I remember correctly. Maybe I did read this one, or maybe I read two. Honestly, I don't remember. This one is called My Friend with Autism. It is written by Beverly Bishop, and it's illustrated by Craig Bishop. I just skipped right to this page, so I'll start out. I have a friend with autism. He is good at many things. My friend's ears work really well. He can hear sounds that I may not even hear. He is almost always the first one to hear an airplane or train coming. This is why sometimes he covers his ears, even when things don't seem loud to me. My friend's eyes work really well. He sees little things that I might not even notice. His eyes work so well that bright lights or sunny days will often hurt his eyes. Now remember guys, this isn't an always for every person on the spectrum. I know my son, really loud noises bother him. Things like trains and airplanes don't bother him, but like somebody yelling bothers him. So far he hasn't said to us anything about sunlight or bright lights hurting his eyes. My friend's taste buds work really well. He can taste even a little bit of pepper in his food. That's why he only eats certain foods, and why sometimes he doesn't want foods that are too hot or too cold. My friend has a strong sense of touch. He can feel even the smallest little thing touching him. This makes him very ticklish. Sometimes he doesn't like to be touched. Other times his sense of touch makes him want to touch me. If I don't want him to touch him, I sometimes ask him nicely not to touch me. My friend is very strong. Sometimes he forgets how strong he is. And he gives hugs to me that are too hard. Sometimes he plays too rough with me. I can help him by reminding him to be gentle and by remembering not to play too roughly with myself. I can help my friend by playing games with lots of movement, running, dancing, swinging. When I play with my friend, I do not have to worry that I will get autism, because autism cannot be caught like the cold or a flu. My friend is very smart. He is good at counting, the alphabet, and many other things. He knew his letters of the alphabet even when he was a little boy. My friend likes when we play with letters and numbers, like when we spell or count. Now, once again, this book is kind of generalizing, kind of making blanket statements. Every child is different. My son personally is very similar to the letters, numbers, reading, and stuff like that. And he taught himself to read at a young age and was obsessed with letters. Now, I have other friends whose children are on the spectrum and they could care less. They didn't start reading till they were older. A few of them don't even know how to read at an older age. So these are kind of making blanket statements. These basically are things that could possibly. Just like me, my friend is good at playing. He especially loves to play with cars, trucks, trains, and things that spin. Sometimes he plays differently than I do, so I watch the way he plays, and then I try to do what he is doing, right next to him. Sometimes he will watch me play, and then he might try doing what I like to do. My friend with autism is very good at many things, but autism also makes some things hard for him. Talking is something hard for my friend, but when he doesn't talk, my feelings are not hurt because I understand that talking is hard for him. Sometimes I can just help him by suggesting some words that he might want to say. My friend still wants to play with me even if he doesn't talk much. I just keep playing and talking with him, even if he doesn't talk or if his words don't make sense to me. Understanding other people's feelings is hard for my friend. He does not always understand that I have feelings too. When I see a person crying, I know that person is probably sad. But when my friend sees a person crying, he may not understand what that means. And that's a big thing for a lot of people on the spectrum. Sharing is hard for my friend. He doesn't understand how much fun it can be to share his toys, or that my feelings are hurt when he takes away toys from me. Sometimes I ask my friend to share with me, but he says no, or he doesn't answer me. If I really think he should be sharing, I usually ask an adult for help. Change is often very hard for my friend. When he is doing one thing and it's time to start doing something different, he gets frustrated. I try to help by telling him what is going on and what's going to happen next. For example, before recess, I remind him we will be going outside in just a few minutes. Just like me, my friend does many things very well, and some things are hard for him. And just like me, my friend with autism loves to have friends. And then these are just, it says getting to know a child with autism. And then this is kind of a page by page for adults. This is a book that I typically send home, send to school with my son for World Autism Day. So it will be going to school with my son. So I'll read the Getting to Know a Child with Autism, and it just has the picture, so I'm going to kind of pull it up so I can read these words because they're smaller. The purpose of this section is to provide adults with additional information about autism based on themes from the pages in the children portion of the book, as well as ideas for helping children with autism. This is not an extensive or scientific discussion of autism. Instead, it is intended to be a quick read and a helpful tool to share with friends, family, teachers, parents, and others. The goal is to give enough understanding to encourage meaningful relationships and to help reduce any fears that people who are new to autism may have. This information is intended for adults, not children, so please use your best judgment when taking points that are appropriate for your audience. Autism is 4 times more prevalent in males than females. Therefore, in order to avoid the clumsiness of him/her, masculine pronouns are used. It's not always intended to exclude girls who are often affected by autism. So they're just talking about how the book itself was written. And then it goes page by page, like notes, like what is autism, like the hearing, vision, taste. So it's kind of helping others understand autism, page by page, kind of for adults, like conversations and feelings, sharing changes. And then there's a page about 18 signs and symptoms of an autism of, I don't know why they have an. This has 18 signs and symptoms of an autism spectrum disorder. I would just say should be autism spectrum disorder. So these may be, if you have a child that you're wondering if possibly these are 18 symptoms. And once again, this book is blanket statements. So not everything is going to fall under every category. I know for my son, when we got him diagnosed, he was under early intervention. And while we loved the lady that came out and did his early intervention with him, we kind of had to fight with her, and I ended up just going to our primary doctor about getting him diagnosed, because I was seeing symptoms after working with kids with autism. I was seeing little red flags here and there, where she was just, oh, he's just being a little quirky. You know, you don't socialize him much, because we had friends with kids, but a lot of our friends with kids, their kids were a lot older than my kids. well, not a lot. Like my kids were 1 and 2, where theirs were like 8 and 10. So I had a lot of friends that had kids right out of high school, and I had them just before I turned 30. So like these are possible signs. They're not going to be or like set in stone, because even my daughter has some of these symptoms, signs and symptoms of autism. We have tested her, but she just has extreme combined type ADHD. A lot of those symptoms overlap. So if you're wondering if your child has autism, my biggest disclaimer is talk to your primary care physician for your child. Tell them your concerns. They can even see if they feel that your child might be on the spectrum, and then they can refer you to the proper channels to get your child diagnosed. So, delays, little or no speech, or sophisticated adult-like speech. In that, my son started out with a bunch of words. He lost a bunch of words. And then once he started gaining his words back, it was adult words. Well, not like swear adult words, but he would say things like, I'm frustrated, when he really didn't even know what the word frustrated is. Like, even to this day, he will use huge words, and he may or may not actually know what the meaning is. Speech patterns that frequent echo to people's exact words. This is called echophilia. And my son, he loved, at that time, Chuggington and Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he could grab his little chuggers, and he had a bunch of the die casts, and he could recreate a whole episode, but he couldn't have a conversation with you. He could grab his little Mickey Mouse figures, have a whole episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, but he couldn't have a conversation with you. Reverses pronouns. You want cookie, please, meaning I want a cookie. He would do that. He would also say, have him and her mixed up, and he and she. So he would say, my daughter, he would be talking about my daughter, and he would say, him want this, instead of she wants this. Speaks are seeming to talk at people rather than talk with people. That, once again, my son did have. Absence of nonverbal communication, such as pointings, gestures, or leading someone by the hand. Now, that was a big one for my son. He never did any of that until he went through his modified ABA. Sometimes seems to not hear or understand simple directions. That was a big one, and once again, we worked on with therapy. Hands cover ears at unexpected sounds indicating pain or fear. He didn't really do this when he was younger. He actually does it now. We do have headphones that, if he needs, are available to him. Lack of eye contact or difficulty making eye contact with others. Appears to be looking through you. This is why my daughter was tested for autism, because she doesn't look people in the eye. But she's not on the spectrum. My son, that was my biggest thing. And people even to this day are like, you know, he makes really good eye contact for a child on the spectrum. Because that was the first symptom I noticed, and I started working with him right away at the young age of 18 months. It was, look at me, please. Look at my eyes. Where are my eyes? Stuff like that. So he still sometimes will kind of look beyond you, and you'll have to kind of redirect his eyes. Like, okay, where are my eyes at? You need to look at my eyes. Walking on tiptoes constantly when shoes are removed. He had to have squeaky shoes for the longest time because that was the only way we could get him to stop tiptoe walking. Hyperactivity, requiring very little sleep and extreme lack of activity, or extreme lack of activity. He really wasn't hyperactive. He does have, well, ADHD, inattentive, but he's never been really hyper. He does require very little sleep, and especially when he was younger, that was hard on everyone. Even to this day, he'll wake us all up at the butt crack of dawn because he can get by on 6 hours of sleep. Everyone else should. Where are we? Difficulty playing with peers. Doesn't join in or seem to understand, pretend play with others. That was another big one. Unusual methods of play with toys for long periods of time. repeatedly lining things up or twirling them. With him, it was when he would play, he was just recreating what he had seen. So he wouldn't pick up like a car and pretend the car was driving. He would go grab his Chuggington die-cast cars and recreate a whole episode of Chuggington. Seems unaware of others' feelings, no reaction to someone getting hurt or someone crying. This one he never, we still work on some of the more complex feelings, but he's always understood somebody crying is usually somebody hurt or sad. And, if somebody gets hurt, he does show concern. Little desire to share happy moments with somebody else, not looking to see if somebody else is looking at the same thing. Now, this he never did. He's always, look at me, look at me. When he was younger, he would go do stuff, but he would look back at us to make sure we were watching him. Strong sense of sameness, routine, repetitiveness. Not wanting to take different routes to the store. There are some things that he needs to be in a specific order, but very, very few things. It's typically like bedtime routine. But when he was younger, had a little bit of difficulty in change to routines. But honestly, at a young age, we never fully had him on a strict schedule. It was a tentative schedule. So he's always been pretty flexible with stuff in that sense. Doesn't seem to learn from typical consequences. Yes and no, depending upon if it was caused something extreme. Like when he was 2, my mom had taken a pot off the stove and set it on the counter, and he grabbed the pot, and obviously it was very hot. And he pulled back his hands, and from then on he will not touch a hot pot. So that left a lasting impression where even to this day, he will do something, he will get in trouble for it, and he'll repeat it. The apparent lack of fear. He's had some strange fears, and there's some things it's like, dude, you need to be afraid of that, and why aren't you? And unusual pain responses, over response or lack of response. That one we have both over and lack of response. It depends upon the situation. So like I said, that's not like a dead set. You have to hit every single one of those. I know a lot of people don't like Autism Speaks. For me, I found them to be a comfort when my son was diagnosed. I didn't know where exactly to turn. Prior to him being diagnosed, I actually went to Autism Speaks website, and they had a checklist on their website, and excuse me, I had already brought it up to his one therapist about him possibly having autism, and that's where she kind of fought back about it, saying no, he's just quirky. So I went to Autism Speaks website, I went through the checklist, he hit the certain number. So that's when I called our primary care physician, and I'm like, I've been noticing these things, and I listed off to him what I felt were symptoms. And I go, I went to Autism Speaks website, and these were the results I got off the website. And from there, my doctor's like, yeah, I agree. He needs to go to where living. It was called the Coordinated Treatment Center. So basically, we got there at 8 a.m. in the morning, and we did not leave till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He went through a bunch of different tests. He did a test with OT. He did a test with PT. He did a test with speech. A nutritionist, a social worker, just a general physical type with a pediatrician, and then a psychologist. And there was one more person that I can't remember who the last person was. But we met with all these people. We had different things with each one of them, and then they sent us down for lunch. And when we came back for lunch, that's when they had collaborated with all their findings, and that's when he was diagnosed with autism. So that's where That's how my son got diagnosed. So if, like I said, when he got diagnosed, I didn't know a whole lot of resources. So I went to Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks has helped us in the past when, right after he was diagnosed, they sent us this huge package in the mail of different, I mean, it was overwhelming, but it had different reading materials and different, you know, if you see this happening, this is how you can help that. If you see this, you know, kind of help that. I know a lot of people don't like them because they feel Autism Speaks is looking for a cure. Personally, I don't think they're looking for a cure. I think they're just looking to A, bring acceptance to autism and awareness, as well as B, I mean, they are helping families. We're currently involved in a huge genetic study that they're doing, and everybody's like, oh, because they want to find autism while women are pregnant so that they can abort those babies. Well, people probably said the same thing when they were trying to figure out with Down syndrome. So I don't feel the genetic study is that. I feel like the genetic study is to, my son had signs and symptoms from birth of autism. Now, could we maybe have lessened some of it had he had gotten some of those interventions even earlier than he did? Probably. And there's a lot of kids that don't even get diagnosed till 4, 5, 6. I have some friends that their kids were 10 before they were diagnosed. But if there is some sort of genetic test that they can do, kind of like a screener for Down syndrome while pregnant, or if after birth, like a routine blood check, and they can screen for autism with that, I mean, that would be fantastic. I have a friend whose son is the same age as my son, and both of our boys have autism. Well, she now has 3 sons younger than the oldest son, and 2 of them are, the second son was just diagnosed and he's 6 now, and her third son, who was 4, they're in the process of trying to get him diagnosed, and then she just had a baby, and the baby has another rare disorder, which the rare disorder can mimic signs of autism. So he might be autistic, he might not. But she's like, you know, if there was a test, the next 3 boys, to get them a blood test that we could diagnose them right away from birth. I mean, think of all those interventions that we're not missing. Like, a lot of insurance won't pay for speech till after the age of 3. Well, the average child isn't getting diagnosed with autism till 3 or 4. Sometimes 5, like right around school. So that's personally why our family is involved, because, you know, if I can help that family that have their child get diagnosed earlier, to get those interventions earlier and not cure it. You're never going to cure autism, but to help that child function in our world. And that's how I look at my son. I don't want him to think he needs to fit into our world. And I know realistically, our world can't, or he's not going to fit into our world, nor should he try. Not try, but basically he's trying to fit into our world, but he should still be himself. But I know our world isn't going to fit into his world type thing, nor will they want to even attempt to fit into his world in most aspects. But there's got to be some happy medium where these kids that are on the less severe spectrum of side of the spectrum, that where they can function, but then they do have the things like the don't know how to react to feelings, don't read social cues very well, stuff like that. Like, where do they fall? I mean, my son talks about going to college and getting a job and getting married and stuff like that. But if he doesn't have the social cues to go to college and get the job, he's going to fall into that statistic that is very high of people with disabilities that are either jobless, they live off Social Security, or they make pennies a day at a job that's meant for people with disabilities. Philip DeFranco did a specialty piece on this not long ago about the, like, they're basically corporations that use people with disabilities, and the people with disabilities only get fractions of pennies a day. Like, they may work 6 hours doing something, but they only get paid $20 for that whole day. And they're making under minimum wage. So I don't want my son to fall in that. I know he's capable of more. So we're trying to do what we can to help him navigate the world. And I know there's some parents that think that that's horrible, and everybody has their own opinion, and everybody's going to do what's best for their own child. Where I've seen people with severe autism that want their child to have more independence than they do, and I've seen people or kids with less severe autism where it's like their parents are smothering them. So you need to do what's best for your family. Like it's also with the Autism Speaks, that's what I'm saying. Everybody has their own opinions on it. And some people, well, they don't really help people. Well, my son has gotten a grant from them to get, his iPad actually came from Autism Speaks. Another friend of mine's son 2 years ago received the grant to get an iPad from Autism Speaks. And a third friend of mine's son just got diagnosed, so she's going to start applying for the grant to get her son, who is nonverbal, an iPad from Autism Speaks. So they do things. They also paid for swimming lessons in my old community for a bunch of children on the spectrum. Unfortunately, because it was around the time we were moving, my son wasn't able to do it. But that's where people, oh, they don't do things to help with people on the spectrum. Some of those people that have been saying those, I've seen others come and say, well, what do you expect them to do? Well, they need to pay for my son's ABA therapy. Well, if they paid for every child on the spectrum's ABA therapy, that would be probably more than the national debt, to tell you the truth, because autism is so prevalent. But I just encourage everybody on World Autism Day today to wear blue, to shine a light on autism awareness and acceptance and awareness. Put a light it up blue, turn on your blue lights. We keep our blue lights up year round, so our house is always lit up blue every year, or every day of the year, because we live in autism. Every day is Autism Day in our house, essentially. This is actually like a holiday for my son. He believes that World Autism Day is a holiday. And his teacher even asked me this year when I messaged her about the book, she made the comment, does he even want kids to know that he has autism? And I even asked him today, and I'm like, do you care? And at first, he didn't understand the question. And then once I broke the question down to him, he's like, oh, I want them to know I have autism, because that's my superpower. So he's embracing his autism, and we have taught him no different, that autism is not a can't. Autism is a, I might do things differently, but I can still do them. And when he tries to use that can't word, I can't do that, where, oh, okay, because you said the K or the can't word, if it's in the context of, I can't do this because of my autism, we don't let him use it as an excuse. He does not get that as an excuse. So we treat him like every other child. If you're looking for other resources on Facebook, there is Fathering Autism is a channel that I follow of a family with, I think she's a teenager now. I believe Abby is a teenager who has autism. She has a form of nonverbal autism where she does make communicate when she vocalizes and stuff. She does vocal stems, but she does sometimes vocalize stuff, and that is a form of communication. And she uses a communication device, so she can still communicate, but not verbally being able to say and talk. They're hoping at some point she can, because she is getting more like, she'll shake her head no, and she'll kind of make like a grunty sound, almost sounds like a no. So they're hopeful. And I know they have many other families on Facebook too, on YouTube and Facebook that they follow. Sorry guys, my camera cut off. But I am going to leave it at that because I need to process this before it needs to go up. So I will talk to everyone later. Bye!